Hi, everyone. This is Jon from Au Packmule, and today we're going to talk Game of Thrones Season 8. And we're going to do a live stream with Gemma from Secrets of the Citadel. I want to thank you for being here, Gemma, but I also want to thank all the people in chat that came early. Britt the Change, Linda R., Catherine Hardig, Professor Cicely Cogsworth. Love saying that name. The Prince That Wasn't Promised is also here. Dana McKay is always first. Lauren's Corner is here as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Hashtag Fluffy Haggis. And you are one of the most amazing people in YouTube, Gemma, because you've been around and you're just very creative. I love the way that you put together videos. And going back to the very first video you did, I watched again today. 424 videos altogether. You put out amazing content, amazing amount of content, but you have a really great insight on what's going on with Game of Thrones and the books from A Song of Ice and Fire. So could you say hello to everybody and then give us a little bit of a reason why you started, if you don't mind?
Yeah, hi everybody. It's absolutely lovely to be here. Wow, AU, you did your research. You know more about my channel than I do. And cringe at you watching my first ever video. I've come a long way since then, to say the least. Hi everybody in the chat. Lovely to see you all. One day, Lauren, we may explain what hashtag Fluffy Haggis means, but today is possibly not that day. Okay, so how I got started with this. I read the books, goodness me, years ago, years before there was a television series. Not all of them, because they hadn't all been released at that point. And I remember once I was just kind of, I don't really watch television very often. I'm more books, YouTube, Netflix, that kind of thing. So I remember the telly was on once and I saw this trailer flash on the television and I thought, crikey, that could be Ned Stark and Jaime Lannister. And then I realized, oh, it is Ned Stark and Jaime Lannister. And I'm like, goodness me, they're doing a Game of Thrones. So I dug my books back out again and started going back over them again. And then I got very worried very quickly, because I was thinking, how are they going to pull this off? This is monumental, and I just could not. I must admit, I went into the show very skeptical that they were going to make some really changes that it wouldn't have been the same story. I just couldn't see how it could be done. And as most of you who are book readers will understand, the first series especially, I mean, there are scenes that are word for word verbatim almost, you know, that it was so accurately captured, and the actors that they chose were just perfect for the most part. I can't really think of anybody who stood out and I just thought, oh no, that's not that character. It just worked beautifully and I really enjoyed it and I got into it. As most of the content creators will attest to, you know, that inevitably leads to, I want more and more. So I started exploring YouTube and I came across some hard hitters like Aziz from History of Westeros. He was a big inspiration of mine. Some of the ones that cover all sorts of things like Emergency Awesome, he was a favorite. And of course, Aussie Man Reviews, who doesn't love that guy? And I kind of thought, I could do this. I think I could do this. I've got enough knowledge. I could talk about this for days. So I just started doing a few videos just for fun, and things kind of, it was like a gathering stone, a rolling stone down the mountain. It just gathered momentum like I could never have believed. And here we are 3 years later.
Ta-da!
Yeah.
Like a blink of an eye, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
For those of you who don't know, when Gemma started her channel, she wasn't on screen, pretty much like a lot of creators, and she didn't talk at all. It was just
That's
print.
right.
And the music that she used would be it would make LML jealous, let's put it that way, with this Spanish guitar. And just I don't know whether you would you call that classical guitar? Is that what
Yes.
how you
Yes.
would label that? If my friend John St. Baptiste was here, he would tell you. But excellent choices. I love the content. Like I said, the very first one was is Tyrion a secret Targaryen? So one of those things that you just were instantly intrigued about because everyone assumed that, right? Maybe not, but I did.
Yeah, like I said, as a book reader, it was something I went into the show already having an awareness of the possibility. I love Peter Dinklage. I think he's absolutely amazing. I couldn't imagine anybody else as Tyrion. But yeah, my favorite theories. I mean, I've reached a point now. It's certainly not my favorite theories anymore. But when I first started this journey, we were all a lot more naive, weren't we? Bless us. And secret Targaryens, I was very excited about the potential of secret Targaryens. Now I'm utterly sick of secret Targaryens. But I think another very, very early one of mine, maybe the second or third, or very, very early, was the Crypts of Winterfell. And I still have that same interest for the Crypts of Winterfell. So that's kind of stuck, whereas Tyrion being a secret Targaryen, not so much.
And speaking of the crypts, are you one of the people that believe that we'll get the raising of the Kings of Winter similar to Tolkien's Army of the Dead?
I mean, I'm not claiming that the theory was mine.
Oh, no. I'm just saying
but it kind of was. I came up with this, I think it was on a live stream, and it was a stream of consciousness. And you know, when you kind of realize I'm formulating a theory as we go here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think again, if you've read the books, I mean, that the statues in those crypts are alive. They're watching, they're waiting. They're very, the descriptions of them are very personalized and animated. Anybody that goes down there feels watched. And then we've got the ironwood door and the swords across the laps. And it very much feels as though they're guarding something or waiting for something, waiting for some kind of raising. I love the idea of one undead army, the White Walkers, and the only thing that can beat them is another undead army. I don't think it'll happen, but I'd love to see it.
One of the things that I like is not necessarily the army of the Kings of Winter, but the army of the Werewoods. I think like Tolkien's Ents,
Yes.
they'll be use that, because if you look at the description of the Werewoods, all of the leaves are hands, the faces on them, etc. I think those are the sleepers that are referred to with the Night's Watch vow, and I think we'll get something like that. I think that would be a lot of fun. Sounds like you've got a friend coming by.
That's my cat, right on cue. Sorry about that.
Oh no, cats like attention, so, and they love to be on screen.
Yes, he really, every time, he doesn't pay me the blindest bit of attention until I get on camera, and then he's all over me. It's usually the way it goes.
Absolutely.
But yeah, the crypts, I don't know exactly what's going on. Of course, there's a million different theories and speculations, but I think it's safe to say that there's something up with the crypts, and they are going to play a hugely pivotal role in the wars to come. I wasn't so sure about the show, and I was very much firmly that this is probably going to be a book thing, but we seem to have some heavy crypt themes going on in the trailers that we've seen for season 8, so who knows?
Yeah, it does seem like not only are they showing a lot of the statues, but they're giving a lot of lines from people that are in the crypts as far as dead people. So yeah, sure, it's very exciting. I hope we we get something like that, because it's been so foreshadowed that I don't see how they could avoid it, but it'll be fun.
Yeah, it will be. The last one, it's going to be bittersweet. I know everybody uses, I mean, bittersweet for us, as in, you know, we love this and we want season 8 so desperately, but then that's it until we get the prequels.
Yes, the prequels are definitely on a roll, it sounds like. So we're excited
good.
about that. And one of the things that's happened over the last week is we've gotten, the posters with everybody on the throne with their new costumes. We've gotten Entertainment Weekly's publication with some really interesting articles. And then we also had the trailer drop last Tuesday for, no apparent reason. It just, hey, it's Tuesday, why not? And then we've gotten little hints here and there. What was the most exciting part of you for the last week or 10 days?
Oh, the trailer for sure, because we'd had the Ice and Fire teaser, and then we'd had Sansa and Dany meet, that 0.8 seconds of clip. And then we had Arya looking in awe at the dragons, another 0.4 second of clip. And it was getting to the point where it was like, just give us something new. Especially as a content creator, I was kind of getting to the point where I'm like, I cannot continue with season 8 predictions until I have something else to get into, to look into, So the trailer was super exciting because it just gave us so much to think about, to speculate on, to theorize about. So yeah, the pictures are always beautiful, although some of them were jarringly photoshopped, in my opinion. But
oh, identically photoshopped. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cut
it was
and
a bit
paste
strange.
Photoshop.
Yeah.
I wanted to say hi to Laughing Shadow. Thank you very much. I hope you find time to come on as well. And also Costume Co is here. Heidi, hello. And then also Khaleesi Clues is here. So thank you for stopping by. I really appreciate it. And hope you guys are enjoying these Q&A with all the different creators. I know Gemma has been one of those people that I've been on her channel. She's been on my channel, but we've never done one-on-one. So I'm really excited to get into some great questions. You have done, like I said, 424. I think it was 424.
I did drop one today.
I'm getting
so maybe 425 now.
But over 400 videos, we'll say. What was your favorite video that you made and why?
I did one on a crazy tinfoil theory that proposed that the long night never happened. And then fairly recently, actually, I did a collaboration with In Deep Geek where we discussed that exact theory because Robert had seen that video as well, and he was intrigued and he wanted me to elaborate on a few things, and he wanted to ask me some questions as well, and to kind of poke some holes in the theory and see what I did with that. We had a great discussion. There was another one I did on the Sons of Craster and the Neverborn, which was fun. I like all the Beyond the Wall stuff. That's the stuff that really intrigues me. Anything
gods,
to do with anything to do with north of the wall, like behind the curtains, so to speak.
It is a pretty magical place considering it's so primitive, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Bran's coma dream, because when you're reading the books, yes, you get the prologue, which is kind of like, okay, is this a horror story? And then it kind of just goes into this normal, well, when I say normal, I don't mean normal, but a very realistic world for a fantasy text. And then really the first time we're kind of reminded that there are magical elements to the story is Bran's coma dream. And that's when it gets real, really. That's when you're like, oh, okay, now we're kicking off. This is where we're going. And that's when you start becoming very intrigued like, okay, this is now becoming very interesting. I mean, the foreshadowing in that dream, the clues that you could dig out, the metaphors, the symbolism. There's so much going on in there, and I think that's what really hooked me to the text. Was Bran's coma dream, and the fact that he flies beyond and essentially passes Bloodraven's test. But of course, at the time, we don't understand that that's what's going on. We've got a few people in the chat now. It's nice to see everybody.
Thank you so much for coming by. One of the things that intrigued me about reading the books, especially North of the Wall, did you ever think we would see giants or the mastiffs or the children like we did in the show?
I mean, we've got one Wegward, one Wegdar, one.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, easy for me to say. We've got him. And then, you know, you've got the whole Varamir Six Skins thing. Like you said, considering how remote and wild it is, there's a lot of magic going on. It's wonderful the way George R. R. Martin juxtaposes this realism and magic in the same breath. You know, the responses that people have to magic are kind of as you would expect them to be. I'm still holding out hope for ice spiders. That would be pretty insane. I mean, George R. R. Martin, the scope within his work for him to introduce all sorts of weird and wonderful descending from the north, because he every now and again he does this thing where he kind of just dips into this gothic horror vibe just for a chapter, and you're kind of like oh wow, yeah. So he certainly if you've read the Forsaken, one of the sample chapters from the Winds of Winter, I mean, that is horror. There's no other way for it. If you wanted to place that into a genre, that's horror. So and I love the way he kind of just dips in and out and teases us with these. So yeah, he certainly could. I mean, goodness knows what he's going to produce when we do. I mean, he said that we will see far deep beyond the veil, north of the wall. So whether that's in reality or like some kind of dream or something is not clear, though.
One of the best narrations of that was by Don the Kraken Witt, who is a Ironborn fan through and through. And awesome. I just love the way that he added all of the Foley sound effects, if you will, and really enjoyed that. Great. He did a great job. But one of the things that, since you mentioned the Forsaken, is that George has released an awful lot of wins. Would you say?
Yeah, I think could we argue that it's the pressure of it that's kind of forced his hand almost to do that? Yeah, but what has been made clear, and I think a lot of people do need to remember this, is that this is not yet canon, because every single one of those pre-released sample chapters is subject to change, and we know our author by now, and we know that he does tend to backtrack on things. There are many things, if anybody's read his original outline, will know that what we're reading now is an entirely different story. There was going to be time jumps. There was going to be a weird Tyrion, Arya, Jon love affair. Lots of things we're glad he dropped. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and there was no Ironborn, so that was no Greyjoys.
No, well, he's certainly added more houses than he intended to, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think once he got started, he just fell in love with the location and his own story. And I think you were talking about whether it was media pressure asking him to release these chapters. I think it was just the enjoyment of him releasing them at the cons. I think he really does enjoy the con experience of old, because he's been doing this since literally the cons began. And that's huge.
And he's always embraced the fandom, hasn't he? I mean, he's got his Not a blog, and like you said, he was once one of those fans. He's a big Marvel fan, a big comic book fan. So he's he's kind of been on the scene, but on the other side of it. And he's always got time for people. And, you know, he'll sit for hours and hours and sign books and meet people. And, you know, he's a real team player, you know, when it comes to, I've not met him personally yet, which is a crying shame, but obviously I'm over here on this tiny little insignificant island and nobody gives me a second thought, unfortunately.
You're on the fingers, right?
I am, yes.
So yeah, I've only gotten to see him twice. I would hardly call it meeting him because I just got his autograph and thanked him for his great stories. But yeah, he definitely is a patient man.
Yes.
And he's not arthritic, so that's good because he's was signing tons of books. Yeah.
I get you. I've only met him twice, you know, just twice. You know?
Well, it was really, really strange. There's an event here called Norwest Con, which is science fiction writers of the Northwest. So that was right across the street from the airport, perfect location. And then 4 or 5 months later in Spokane, WorldCon, Spokane, Washington, which is like the middle of nowhere in a state that's in the middle of nowhere. So I thought it was really strange, but it's only 5-hour drive away and got to go, and that was a lot of fun. That was actually the most fun because there was almost nobody there. So that's why I enjoyed it.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. I do have a
2015.
signed copy of a dance that my friend managed to source for me. So that's kind of my prized possession. I've never opened it other than the page that has his signature on.
I did that with the illustrated Game of Thrones book. His cinema was releasing, there was like a fundraiser. So if you bought it, part of the money went to the John Cocteau Cinema in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And so I bought that, I guess, 2 years ago. But it was signed by Martin. But yeah, so I had 3 of his signatures, not anywhere near a huge collection, but just fun times.
I've got Sean Bean's autograph on a photograph, but being in England, the actors are far more accessible to me personally than George R. R. Martin is, because Sean Bean lives pretty much just down the road from me, to be honest.
You pass him by going to the grocery store.
Pretty much everybody. My accent does not sound like, a lot of people struggle to identify whereabouts in England I'm actually from, because I'm a bit of a licorice all sort bag of accents kind of meshed. But I don't sound like everybody in my town. Everybody in my town sounds like Sean Bean. But they all sound like they're from the north.
How cool is that?
Yeah, they all drop their H's, and I ate it instead of I hate it, for example, would be that's how they talk. Yes, they're all Sean Beans, basically. Sean's from Sheffield, which is about an hour from me.
Gwendolyn Christie will be at the Emerald City Comic-Con in Seattle on Thursday only. And so I'm going there to see her and get a signature and take a picture and all that good stuff. So that'll be fun. But really, there's not a lot of other Game of Thrones actors there. I think we've only had a few.
No, they're all over here. That's why. for the
they're all
most
working,
part.
right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you go to London, and that's where they all hang out. I mean, because Kit obviously does a lot in the West End. He does a lot of stage work, so he's usually at the West End.
Nice. So let me ask you, in regards to Game of Thrones season 8, what is it, the one thing that you really want to happen besides the crypts? Because we've already talked about that, obviously.
One thing I want to happen, there's lots of things. It's very difficult to choose one. I would like Arya to live. After seeing that trailer as well, I would like Arya to live, but I would like her to kind of stay true to herself, and I would like to see her sailing into the western seas and go, you know, on her travels west of Westeros to go on adventures and not end up like married to Gendry or some lady or something. I want to see her being herself, basically, and surviving it all, Although I think the odds, literally the odds at the bookies plummeted after the trailer came out on Arya living. But I love Arya, and I've been scared for her since the moment Jon dropped the "you'll be sewing all through winter, and then they'll find your cold dead body with a needle still in." From reading that quote, I've been scared for her since book 1. So fingers
just
crossed
teasing
for
you.
Arya. Yeah.
Someone posted in Twitter, I think it was, after that came out, that George is obviously getting a divorce.
Sure.
because his wife obviously said that if anything happens to Arya, we're getting a divorce. Right.
Yeah. So Paris is officially filing for divorce as we speak after seeing the trailer.
So yeah, it sounds like it's going to be a rough 6 episodes, but I think I personally I would love to have Arya alive, because I think she's been through so much. Yeah. And it would be good to have her be able to live out her life in a happy time. Yeah, or happier. Exactly. Let's put it that way.
I think if anybody really deserves just to be able to do her thing and to be allowed to do her thing and to not be stabbed in the stomach by old ladies, and she's just been so spread all over the place, and she's never really had anybody, has she? You know, everybody's been through terrible times, but they've usually had someone that's kind of had their back. Like Jon's had a terrible time, but he's always had Sam. Right. You know, and you can say a lot. You know, Dany's gone through some terrible stuff, but she's always had Jorah. There's always been someone who's got her back, and who's ever really had Arya's back but herself? You know, I know there was Gendry, but they were ripped apart, and you know, so, and then there was the Hound and Jack in her guards. Like everybody she had just was torn away from her. Ned taking it right back, you know. So it would just be nice. I'd actually think she doesn't. I'd like to see her go it alone, because I think that's who she is.
One of the things that I really appreciate about Chrissy from Oldstone in the chat is that she's awesome. Always laying down all the great links, like the PayPal to your channel. If you go in the description, you'll see everything about Gemma, including her just everything. There isn't anything I didn't miss. So go check that out. I definitely want you to you know, obviously if you're not subscribed to her, I don't know what the hell's going on with you, but yeah, definitely go into the description there. All the links are there. So I know that's one of your pet peeves, and I really wanted to make sure that happened. So you've
the links?
Yes.
It's kind of the other way around. I always forget to put the links in. It's because it's not really. I thought it
was Kyle that didn't do that.
No, it's very much the opposite way around. Kyle is all about the links.
Okay.
And I forget all the time, and then he's going, I'm not coming on live until you've put the links in. I'm like, oh, do I have to? Oh, I just want to make content. And I'm like, people know how to use the internet. If they want to find me, they will. You know, where there's a will, there's a way. And these Game of Thrones fans are generally intelligent enough to figure their way around the interwebs. So, but yes, I do get the links in because he pesters me, but I am a bit naughty for that.
Well, thanks again, Chrissy and OTDA. Yes, I really appreciate both of you keeping them going, because there's always new people in the chat visiting. So thank you for doing that. Yeah, Antique Gamer thinks I'm from Australia, and I think it's because I said good day to her one time in chat, which means, you know, obviously I'm a native. I don't know how that came about, but
I have people tell me that my accent's Australian. And I'm like, no,
yeah, not really too much.
No. Definitely not. Pretty much the opposite side of the world, but okay.
No, I'll tell you, I probably have said this 100 times, but I'll tell you, the AU is for gold in the periodic table of elements. And that's one of the things that I enjoy doing, is prospecting for gold. So it's just been part of my channel. Yeah. So in regards to season 8, obviously Game of Thrones, we have a huge interest in the Crips and Arya. your name is Gemma Stark. I'm assuming you just love all Starks.
I do love the Starks. Yeah. I know it's a bit of a cliche and it's a bit boring, but they are my favorite house. You know that there's some awesome houses out there. There's House Hightower, there's House Dane, House Blackwood's pretty cool. The few members that we know. You know, there's House Martell who are pretty awesome. But I think ultimately I like the Starks because I know the most about them, past, present, and potentially future. It's very difficult to kind of say, oh, my favorite house is House Blackwood, when we literally know one guy really, and he's got a cool raven feathered cloak, and that's about it. You know, so in my opinion, there's no competition. I've said I like the Beyond the Walls stuff. I like all the old gods stuff, all the weirwoods, and the Starks are very much kind of, you know, woven into all of that, those legends and those histories. And they've got a very rich history. They've got that amazing crypt, and I find them utterly fascinating. And it's not kind of surface level fandom that I like the Starks. It's because of the deeper, darker stuff. I'm really fascinated with what is the deal with the Ironwood. Actually, I've done a whole video on Ironwood. A lot of people talk about Weirwood, but I think show only watchers won't be aware that there's actually another blue with blue leaves, black trees, blue leaves, which is like the opposite of the Weirwoods. And I've kind of tried to explore, but you get sucked into the telltale game when you start looking at Ironwood, unfortunately, and then you get a crossover of fandoms and you're not sure, is this canon, so it's a bit tricky to really fully explore the Ironwood. But
did you dismiss it after the Telltale games?
No.
As far as the Ironwood in that realm?
No, I tried to not get my canons mixed up. That's what it. So it was. There was a lot of sifting and double checking and making sure that this is definitely referenced in the texts and not from the game. But there is a very good possibility that Shade of the Evening comes from Ironwood in the way Weirwood paste comes from the Weirwoods. So there's. You know, there are a lot of parallels, but I keep talking about the books, and we're supposed to be talking about the show.
No, I was just going to ask, do you think any chance that the Starks, in all of your research, because you've done I'm trying to think of the word I'm looking for, but it's the family history with names, etc. Any chance that the Starks are actually Andals and not the First Men?
I don't think so. No, I think timeline-wise, they go too far back. But the timelines themselves are sketchy, to say the least. You know, and it was Samwell that said, you know, you've got knights running around when they didn't even have knights. You know, that it's extremely problematic. So I could not answer that question with any surety, but if I had to put money on it myself personally, I would say that no, they're not Andals. They are definitely of the First Men, if not the first men. You know, that's kind of where that branch came from. I think House Blackwood falls into that category as well, and some of the others. I think there's a few of those older northern houses that during the course of time kind of filtered into House Targaryen as well, because I don't think like the green seeing ability and all the things, all the powers that Bran has, I don't think they are a Stark thing. I think they are a First Men thing.
Interesting. One of the reasons why I always thought that that's a possibility is because they established their castles with a lot of the rounded towers, and Bran the Builder, who's the most famous Stark pretty much of all, used that flat surface construction in all of his buildings, whether it was, you know, the Wall or Winterfell.
Yeah, he did. Possibly the High Tower as well. He at least helped draw up some plans from what we can gather.
And that's all in Andalusi
It is,
characteristic.
yeah. You're absolutely right. I can see where you're coming from. I think with this whole Bran the Builder thing, like Winterfell, it kind of, when you look into that, it kind of feels that what's on the surface and above is fairly incidental. It is quite apparent that the bulk of the work that was done in Winterfell was below ground. That's what it was truly about. That was its true purpose, because the rest of it, it's sort of been torn down and rebuilt, and some bits have been left and other bits have been built upon and others have gone into ruin, and you've got kind of like almost 2,000 years of this mishmash of different ages and styles kind of all crammed together. Whereas I think Bran the Builder's true intention as far as Winterfell goes was the crypts.
Yeah, very, very true. I always thought that the castle was, built and rebuilt and torn, fallen apart and all that stuff, just like the castles on the wall. Throughout history, we've seen, almost 100 of them. So yeah, it's pretty interesting there. When you talk about the Game of Thrones season 8, obviously we have an awful lot that's going on. Are you only concerned about the Starks and what happens to them, or do you think that there is another Shireen moment or Hodor moment that we're going to get that will be the one explanation of all things?
Possibly. I mean, the only thing I can conceive as far as that third holy F moment would be a Night King style reveal. I've looked at that trailer very carefully, and there is the part where the child is sat in the tree watching the Unsullied marching towards Winterfell, and you can see Winterfell in the background. You can see that they are marching towards Winterfell, and then it cuts to Jon and Dany on horses riding alongside the Unsullied. So you assume this is an immediate cut. This is Jon and Dany with the Unsullied walking towards Winterfell. But if you look carefully at the Jon and Dany cut, Winterfell's behind them. They're walking away from Winterfell. I do not think Jon and Dany are going to be at Winterfell for as long as we think. I think they are heading north of the Wall. And in order for them to do that, it's such a crucial moment. They'd have to have a really good reason. And I think this is not going to be what we think it's going to be. I think the assumption is it's going to be a big battle. Everybody's going to fight, and someone's going to win and someone's going to lose. Yeah. I think there's certainly going to be a bit more of a twist in the tale to this, some kind of echo of the Pact.
Well, I don't think we're going to get the real truth in regards to what happened at the Long Night, because we have the Long Night prequel. Yeah. And that's already been hinted that we aren't going to be told what really happened.
But some kind of explanation for motive would be awesome, because I would be really, I would be angry if we reached the conclusion of this and all we knew was that the Night King was just evil, gonna smash, do bad. I need more than that. I need some kind of motivation, no matter how small, even if it's something that we can speculate on, but just give us something. Don't just have this, these are the bad guys, we're the good guys, we're gonna fight, someone's going to win. So please don't do that to us.
Yeah. One of the things that I love about the story and I love about the books is trying to find the truth. You just mentioned, the part that you have to sift through as far as what is true and what is not true, like the timeline. But there are other parts of the story for me. The Children of the Forest turning the man into the White Walker, the Night's King, if you will, is, to me, is not true. Only because it's done by Leaf. Leaf wasn't around after, I think she was born at 100 AC. So I don't know whether they're just trying to use Leaf because we're familiar with her and that's the part of it, or whether that really happened sometime around 150 AC. and that's when we got the White Walker, etc. Any moments like that where you just go, I don't buy what they're telling me?
That one, very much so. I remember
So
finishing
we
that
agree,
episode.
huh?
Absolutely. I remember
Nice.
finishing that episode, and after I had stopped blubbing over Hodor, obviously, because that was the door episode, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I remember thinking, but if they created, because the timeline suggests that that was after, so why are they creating a weapon after the pact's already, I mean, and I'm like, this doesn't make sense.
Mm-mm.
I know the timelines are off, but this is not fitting. So yeah, that was definitely one that I still to this day, when and people come into my videos and they'll say, yeah, but the children of the forest created the White Walkers. I'm like, yeah, it's not canon. So just saying.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, I love the show. I adore the show. It's the best thing on television, hands down. But in my mind, it's just awesome fan fiction. I'm very book orientated, book focused,
Sure.
and until I see it in the book, it hasn't happened officially for me. So I will talk about Stannis as though he's still alive, and people will try to correct me and woe betide them for trying that one. Actually, I think you'll find Stannis, the one true king of Westeros, is very much still alive. Thank you very much. The Tower of Joy, I struggled with that.
I've said it in my live streams before.
Yeah.
It's just this last week. I don't believe the Tower of Joy story. I don't think
stabbing Arthur Dane in the no.
It doesn't say that he killed him in the book. I think it would have been an easy thing for George to write if he killed him.
What did he say? If it wasn't for Howland Reed, I would be dead. That doesn't suggest, that could be so many things.
Yeah. What is your primary events at the Tower of Joy that you think? Because obviously tearing down the tower and making graves is not really what happened.
No. I was actually discussing this with Robert from Indie Geek a while back, and we came to the conclusion that Arthur Dane is dead, but he actually didn't die at the Tower of Joy, that he went away and did something else. And we concluded, and this is Robert's words, not mine, he probably went off and died in a really lame way, like he got the flu or something, or just old age, or just something really lame and boring.
He got a blister and got infected.
Yeah, that kind of thing. But we both do agree that Ashara Dane is still alive. I'm not going to give too much away because Robert is about to drop a very big theory about that. So if you want more,
Robert will be on the 24th.
Awesome.
So we'll, by then he'll have that video out and we'll be able to get to talk about that. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not kind of slamming the show as far as the Tower of Joy goes, because
no. That's what was presented, right? It
was, yeah. This is Ned's thoughts. This is his internal monologue. This is his fever dreams, that kind of thing. So I'm not just questioning the show's interpretation of the Tower of Joy. I'm actually questioning Ned Stark's version of events. I don't know, is it us? Did we read too much into it? Or is Ned just being extremely selective because George R. R. Martin needs him to be? I think that's probably the case.
That is exactly what it is. I mean, he's obviously told this story to himself so many times that that's the way he would tell it in order to avoid any problems with Robert or the Lannisters.
And that's what people do, isn't it? They kind of construct this narrative that fits with what they need it to fit with, and then over the course of 15 years, that becomes the narrative. Whether it's true, truth is in the eye of the beholder, and so Nine Nichols in the chats just said George even said that the dream wasn't literal. So that's. We're all in agreement. I am keeping an eye on you, chat. Don't worry.
Speaking of which, Chrissy of Oldstones picked up a Revengeance question. Q&A. Are we going to see Jon and Dany go inside the Fist of the First Men? We see them there in the trailer.
I think so. I think so. I think Bran is going to send them on some
Honeymoon?
crazy mission.
Say go on a
I
honeymoon.
think
It'll
they're
take 2 weeks.
honeymoon beyond the wall. I'd prefer Dawn, I think, for a honeymoon.
You remember that grotto that you went to? Yeah, go check that out.
Yeah, that's right. You looked beautiful that night. Yeah. So Bran's going to be all creepy and cryptic and say some stuff that freaks everybody out. And then Jon and Dany are going to be very reticent. Jon's not going to want to leave because the White Walkers are coming and Winterfell's about to get swamped, so to speak. We called it, we said the Battle of Winterfell was going to be a whitewash. And I was very proud of myself for that pun. So yeah, Jon's going to be all torn. I need to leave. I need to do this. And I think it's if Jon and Dany are both going beyond the wall for whatever mission they're doing, I have a sneaking suspicion that both of them will not be returning. One of them might, but not both of them.
We've got to have them come back. Otherwise, there's no reason for them to leave, right?
I think some kind of sacrifice will be required beyond the wall.
And
I'm not. There's many ways that this could go, isn't there?
Yeah.
So let's see.
Yeah, absolutely. Dun 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 dun. Well, that's exciting because I think that's one of the things that I didn't even guess. One of the things that I did guess though was Cersei. When Marie was on from Game of Theories with Marie, we were talking about the Cersei drinking and the tear scene.
Mm-hmm.
I was guessing that might be after she loses the baby. She's obviously drinking again, but what's in the wine cup is not only wine but poison.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts there?
Well, she's got previous Battle of Blackwater. She was certainly prepared to do it, and as you know, I'm an English teacher, so I'm looking for things like, you know, it's a kind of Chekhov's gun, isn't it? You know, if why are they so keen to show us how prepared Cersei is to commit suicide specifically in that way? Yes, it was seasons ago. It was at the end of season 2, but when it's good storytelling, really good storytelling, is when things like that come back around, and it makes so much more sense when they're kind of capped. So you know, people talk about the Valonqar. They you know, she's going to get murdered, or the Mountain's going to murder her, or Qyburn's going to turn on her.
Mm-hmm.
You're on that kind of thing. And yes, there is the whole prophecy, but you know, we all know what Marwyn said about prophecies. I always come back to what he said about prophecies and things getting bitten off. For me, the fact that we watched that scene, that she was prepared to not only commit suicide, but she was prepared to do the same to her child, I think that is huge. And it makes a lot of sense for that to come back around full circle. You know, right. If she was in a situation where she was blocked in, she was locked in, it was done, it's over. You know, if she had the choice between being taken out by her enemies or doing that on her own terms, we know Cersei Lannister, we know what she would choose. She would do that on her own terms.
And Old Nan told us that would happen in the very, very first episode. So, yeah, without a doubt. I like that idea. I'm not sure if everybody else is on board, but other than Air Touch Altanos, which I love, and Fandom D Saint, which I love, they're the only Cersei lovers that I've ever met, and yeah, most of them really do want Cersei to die. It's just, and it's justified, but it's just who is going to be the one that pulls the trigger, as you will.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. I love Cersei. She, you know, I love all as a character. I love all of the characters. For different reasons. That doesn't mean I condone Cersei's behavior, but she's an awesome character. She's great to read. Her point of view chapters are spectacular. She is so deluded. It's almost terrifying to see the way she kind of convinces herself of these false truths and narratives that she creates in this deluded world. It's beautiful to read.
it's one of the things that really set me off as far as finding out what the truth is when people are telling it, and
Yes,
how to read the
reliable
POVs.
narrators.
Right. Because I mean, when she said Ned was drunk coming home from a brothel, it was just like an obvious lie
Yeah.
that could be interpreted in a way that nobody would disagree with her. I mean, obviously he was at a brothel, whether he was drunk or not, you know.
My favorite unreliable narrator is Theon Greyjoy,
Ooh.
because it's so obvious to everybody else what's happening. The reader, everybody else around him, he is that deluded. Again, I keep using the word deluded, but that's the first ever one where he arrives at Pike and he meets up with Asha and they go to meet his father, and it's like, you know, as a reader, you're kind of cringing because you're like, come on, Theon, see this, wake up. How can you be this stupid? You know, and then when he kind of gets his comeuppance and he's shamed, it's like, you kind of feel a bit sorry for him, but he is a major douchebag in that chapter, so you kind of feel like he deserves it too. You're torn, you know? But yeah, it's great to kind of get into the heads of these people and then say, yeah, but just because I'm in this person's head doesn't mean this is the truth.
Absolutely. One of the things that I didn't, and I apologize ahead of time, is in regards to all the links that I put in the description. I didn't put the Too Wordy there. So could you tell us a little bit about your Too Wordy channel?
Yeah, sure. I haven't actually done anything with Christy for a while because, and she's being very respectful of the fact that obviously season 8 hype is ramping up, and I said before we came live on air, didn't I, that I've basically told all of my friends, I'll see you in a couple of months. I am full on US time at the moment. I go to bed at about 5 a.m. I wake up in the afternoon. So I'm fully now adjusted to US time zones in preparation for that. So unfortunately, Christy and I have not been able to do anything on Too Wordy, but we do intend to get back to it. Generally, Christy is a real life friend of mine. She's an author. She's written several YA books. I obviously English teacher, English literature degree. So we came together with that common interest, and when we talk, I kind of go around to her house for coffee, we always have very literary based conversations. And I said to her once, if we recorded this conversation, people would listen. And she said, don't be daft. And I said, no, they really would. If this was a podcast right now, I promise you people would watch this, because we could like tell them about, you know, the things we discuss and literary techniques and things. And so she said, well, why don't we? So we kind of come together once a week when the channel is more active, and we'll choose a different subject. We've done foreshadowing. We've done things like how to kill your protagonist, sex scenes, you know, how to write one that's not totally corny. And it's literally our opinions based on our modest and humble understanding of the subjects. And yeah, it's been really well received, actually. And Christie's, you know, had a few extra book sales as a result of that channel, which has been wonderful, completely unexpected. So she's delighted with that. But it's a topic that we genuinely just discuss because we love the topic. So it's easy. It's an easy one for us to do, but we really enjoy it.
Yeah, I enjoy listening to it. That's one of the things that both you and Robert have in common, is that your second channels are not Game of Thrones, but they're definitely on point with what Game of Thrones fans like.
Sure, yeah, there must be a theme going on there. We all like the same kind of things, don't we?
Absolutely. Did we see Kyle in here?
Yes, it's just there. I was going to say hello, actually.
Go ahead, say hello.
Hi, Kyle. How's it going? I haven't spoken yet. Yeah, I spoke to him, Kyle, yesterday. It's been like a whole almost 24 hours. I am now officially getting Kyle withdrawals. Message me, Kyle.
in a few minutes. Wait
yeah, sure. Oh, I'll ignore him. Don't worry. When I'm on live stream, he knows that.
I'm so sorry. I didn't see you in there. Kyle, hello.
He just woke up from his nap. He'll have bedhead. Bless him.
How would we know? It's always covered. Yeah.
Well, speaking of things that we both like, we did not discuss prior our clothing choices for.
Oh, that's true.
This was a complete coincidence.
We are part of the MCU, yes.
Yeah.
Spider-Woman and Captain America. Yeah, it's always fun to watch any of the shows that Marvel puts out. Some of them are better than others, but definitely a Cap fan for sure. And obviously you are as well.
Yes, I am. Although my favorite character from the MCU, and I said this before we came on, is not Captain America. JR will tell you it's Star-Lord. I'm a sucker for humor. You know, if you want to get round me, if you want to get into my good books, make me laugh. I love Star-Lord.
I got to spend Christmas at Disneyland in Anaheim, California. And my daughter works there, so we enjoyed watching her work the whole time. And one of the things that we got to do is to go on the Guardians of the Galaxy ride, which is basically an elevator that throws you up in the air and bounces you like a trampoline for about 20 minutes until you're ready. Yeah, until you're ready to, like, your bowels let go and everything. Yeah. We were in line in one of the aisles, and the guy's like, no, you don't want to come in here. Really, you don't want to come in here. And we had to go to the other side of the building because that ride was there was too much of a mess, he said.
Oh dear. Wow.
But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I knew my daughter had written it
a few times.
Sorry?
I've never been to any of the Disney Worlds or lands or anything, but a few of my
gotcha.
subscribers have messaged me and said, I live around the corner and I've got like a year pass.
Nice.
Come and stay with us for the week and you and your family can go. And I'm, you know, how much is a ticket to Florida? I don't know. How soon can I be there? You know?
Yeah, I used to live 25 minutes away from Disney World.
Awesome.
And loved going every time. I knew my daughter knew this ride really well, because you know how you get your picture taken when you're like the most scared you could possibly be. By the way, that picture is on Instagram. Her hands are fully,
check it out.
Her hands are fully up, ready to go, like nobody's business. Like, I'm just having fun, you know.
Just like, nah, this is my first rodeo.
Yeah, too funny. That was a great time. But speaking of great times, season 8 of Game of Thrones, we definitely got down. Any idea as far as your second favorite family?
Lannister, without a doubt.
Really?
Yeah, I love the Lannisters. Okay. Tyrion's my favorite character.
Mm-hmm.
Jaime is my favorite POV. And his redemption arc is just insane. You know, Jaime is a character, he's so complicated and so nuanced, and there's, you know, the way we feel about Jaime Lannister really prompts us to ask some serious questions about ourselves and what we are prepared to accept and what we're prepared to overlook when we like somebody. And it really does evoke a lot of soul searching in ourselves when you have to pick apart, why am I loving this character right now? I mean, look at the terrible things he's done. I mean, what kind of monster am I that I'm just ignoring all of this stuff? But Tyrion obviously, he's well read, he's witty, he's clever, and he's got daddy issues. So, you know, Tywin himself is, he was spectacular. What an amazing character. I mean, he was horrendous, but he was brilliant. And Charles Dance just did him an absolute solid. That character, beautifully played, the very subtle, understated performance. Love the Lannisters. I actually really enjoyed the fact, and this is why I'm not really big on the whole Tyrion Targaryen thing anymore, because I love the fact that the Lannisters don't really do any magic stuff. They don't have some kid who can predict the future in his dreams, and they don't ride dragons, or they don't even ride lions, you know. They've kind of introduced with Qyburn and the Mountain, that's kind of seeping in on the periphery of their storyline. But as a general rule, they use their wits and their courage and their determination. And look where it's got them.
Yeah, their wits have definitely played a big part in the characters, especially with Cersei, even though she has made quite a few mistakes.
Yes, that's one way of putting it.
Yeah. But she has, she has lived this long in a world she could have been easily brushed aside from season 1.
Yeah, I should wear the armor. You the gown. I mean, who cannot?
Quiet woman, I honor you again.
Well, yeah, but who could not love lines like that? Oh, now Nichols has just dropped a donation on you. That's lovely. How
Isn't that amazing? I really appreciate that. She asked, could the title of Sword of the Evening, held by King Valerian Dane, be a special office with its own sword that the Danes used for the long night? I'm confused.
Yeah. This is well, obviously Arthur Dane is the
Sword of the Morning,
most recent Sword of the Morning. This is the title that House Dane bestow upon the wielder of the Sword Dawn. This is not a title that's just passed down to the eldest son. No, this is far more badass than that. You have to earn this. I think Davos Dane, who was Nymeria's second husband, had the title Sword of the Morning. But then we've seen in the appendices, it kind of springs up this title Sword of the Evening, and Darkstar kind of hints that might be where he's going. I don't, as far as there being, because we've got these two opposing titles, Sword of the Morning and Sword of the Evening, but they can actually be the same thing, just different versions of the same thing. So I'm not sure if that means two separate swords, like House Dane is secretly keeping a black oppositional sword to Dawn called Night or whatever. Like Venus is called the Sword of the Morning and the Sword of the Evening, depending on where its location is to Earth. So it's the same thing, essentially, but it's kind of like that shadow side and that light side. I think Darkstar will steal Dawn and dub himself Sword of the Evening. I think that's where that comes in. Yeah. And then he'll join Aegon and be on his Kingsguard.
Nice.
And then
he is a jealous, petty guy, isn't he?
He's kind of been. Yeah, he is. Yeah, I was nearly about to stick up for Darkstar then, and then I realized what I was doing. Yeah, no, he's not a nice guy.
Which really deteriorates our thought process on the Danes, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, technically, he's of High Hermitage, so he's kind of like, no, he's not a proper Dane.
He's a lower family.
Yeah, he is. He is a proper Dane, but he's not really. We can say that. But if you're going to have a character as awesome as Arthur Dane, it kind of makes sense to give us a parallel. I think that's the point of that we've got these two oppositional forces there.
I think it's almost the same as Ned and Brandon, in regards to the differences in the family. Yeah,
the shy wolf and the quiet wolf, rather, and the wild wolf. Yeah.
Wild.
Tolkien has said Darkstar is not a nice guy, but Jaime is. Very good point, Tolkien.
Come on, if it wasn't for Nikolaj, you wouldn't like Jaime.
I love Jaime in the books.
Do you really? Okay.
Yeah, he's my favorite point of view.
Interesting. Okay. That being said, are you thinking that he's going to be fitted with maybe an obsidian or Valyrian steel weapon in his cut off hand?
Who was it that somebody said that they've just got this vision of him with a Valyrian steel hook just running around touching all of the White Walkers?
Yeah, exactly.
All just dropping. It would make sense. I mean, I never quite understood why he didn't get some kind of screw-on sword contraption. because he's gone to such lengths to try and learn with his left, and that's never panned out, because this is Game of Thrones. In any other fantasy novel, he would just be awesome at his left hand as well, but not in Game of Thrones. So why not? And even Syrio Forel says, the sword is your hand.
Yeah,
your
you
hand.
can't separate your hand.
Exactly. So Jaime
maybe that's something Tyrion will do this season. He'll make him a saddle, if you will.
Come up with some blueprints for a screw-on Valyrian steel sword. Yeah, that would work.
Gendry, could you help me out over here?
Yeah. Well, Gendry's doing something along those lines in the trailer, isn't he?
Yeah. I'm not sure if it was your video that pointed out all the obsidian on everything, including the spearheads and the unsullied armor, the shields.
They're kitted out with the stuff, aren't they? I mean, Arya has at least 2 weapons that are dragon glass, and that dragon glass seems to be being heavily passed about. And the Valyrian steel, what little they have, is being shared about. Jorah Mormont has Heartsbane, for example. So, yeah, they're certainly as prepared as they'll ever be.
A mutual friend of ours, Lauren's Corner, has come up with the Obsidian Bomb theory. Are we going to get any Obsidian Bombs for season 8?
I don't think so.
Jaime's not going to be throwing them, that's for sure.
No.
He's no baseball player, is he?
No, he doesn't have the same arm as the Night King, does he?
So, being that George is such a great writer and creator of great characters, with Jaime having his sword hand cut off and having to humble himself to be retrained by someone like Bronn and be captured by the Starks, those wolf people, and going through all of that. Hey, Frank from Artem Orbit is here. Thank you for coming by. Really appreciate it. Being that we have gone through that, Jaime has gone through that process. What was George trying to tell us about him, since you love him so much as a character?
In order for a character to be redeemable, they need to be stripped back. They need to be vulnerable. They need to kind of go through a rebirth. And in order to do that, everything has to be torn down. And this will happen in differing degrees depending on the nature of that character. So when Jaime got captured by the Starks, and he was with them for over a year, time-wise. So he was captured, and he was filthy and muddy and dirty, and he in the books he shaves his head and grows a beard, and so he doesn't look like this golden, beautiful knight that we were first introduced to at all. But for Jaime, that was not enough humiliation. He wasn't humbled enough. He was still arrogant and self-entitled. So Jaime needed even more. And what had to be removed from Jaime was the thing that defined him. I also found it extremely interesting that Cersei and Jaime were born with him holding on to her foot, and it was that hand. So metaphorically, that connection between Cersei, the severance had begun. So it wasn't just Jaime losing his identity, it was the connection with his sister Cersei being severed at the same moment. It was an absolute turning point for Jaime. He would never be the same again. And then we have to watch him as a character and is he going to crumble, or is he going to step up? And how long is this going to take, and what trials and tribulations and challenges? That's how you build pathos with a character, and that's how you can turn an audience into loving a character. But there's the only way that George R. R. Martin could do that with the audience, to make them feel that way about Jaime, is to put him at his most rock bottom.
So that being said, obviously we are hoping that he's going to have this huge redeeming arc.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's already happened? We're not going to get any more redemption? Because it seemed to me in the show, it really he really did cling to Cersei way too long to
Yeah,
get
far more than
as much redemption as in the book.
yeah. For me, and again, I do a lot of this. You know, we can't help but not look at the books, even when we're looking for ideas for the show. The last thing, Jaime Lannister absolutely idolized Rhaegar Targaryen and Sir Arthur Dayne, who were very close friends themselves. And Rhaegar and Jaime, by all accounts, were very good friends. A lot of that era, especially the tourney of Harrenhal, and what was going on with the Kingsguard, Daenerys' Kingsguard, it all comes from Jaime's point of view. The last thing Jaime said to Rhaegar was a promise that he would protect Rhaegar's children in Rhaegar's absence, meaning Aegon and Rhaena. And obviously the Mountain and Armory Lorch did their thing when Tywin was sacking the place, and they were killed or whisked away and became Aegon or whatever, whatever you want to believe there. So Jaime he failed in his promise to the man that they were kind of setting up to be king. So when Jaime discovers who Jon is, what a perfect circle back around for him to be able to fulfill that promise. I'm not entirely sure if it will happen, but I would love to see Jaime actually sacrificing himself for Jon, or doing something spectacular for Jon in that fulfillment. The only show issue I have is that they've never brought that up. They've never mentioned in the show that promise was even made. But I think so. I think in the show it's more likely to be a Brienne and Jaime kind of scenario. One will sacrifice themselves for the other, and I think it will. I think Jaime will die and Brienne will live.
I think the scene in the first episode where he wishes Jon good luck in the wall, is kind of that. It was very sarcastic the way he did it.
Yes,
but
considering he pretty much had the exact same job, just with a white cloak instead of a black. Yeah, so there was a degree of irony on Jaime's behalf, I believe.
I think that's exactly what he was going for.
Yeah, but I think that's as much of a hint that we're ever going to get that Jaime made this promise to Rhaegar, which is really a terrible hint.
Yeah, unless one of the things that I've said before is we got the positive identification of Jon's parents really, really fast. I mean, Sam had a real quick conversation with Bran. We got a vision, bing, bang, boom, we're done. So there's a lot of things that can be told in these stories that don't really require a lot of time. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it very much feels as though they are pulling this all together very tightly now, especially season 7 was almost a series of cutting it away the chaff. It was like, okay, that storyline's done, wrapping that in Sand Snakes done, done, the Littlefinger done, story over. It was just like boom, 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 and they dropped like flies.
Yep.
And they didn't really introduce anything new except for the Euron angle, and Euron's kind of been hanging around for a few seasons now. But yeah, it's very much tapering now, isn't it? They're certainly not going to start introducing anything. Well, we said this, and then there was they trolled us with the Golden Company and this suspiciously blonde-looking man who everybody keeps telling me it's Harry Strickland, and I'm like, do you know what Harry Strickland looks like in the books? Because did they choose a man that looked like that just to troll us in the trailer with Aegon, or I don't know, but that's not what Harry Strickland.
Mara Lee, what are you? Oh my goodness, thank you so much.
She's lovely. Mara always does this. Thank you.
That is amazing. For Gemma, appreciation of all the content on your videos. How about that? That is definitely going right to Gemma for sure.
No, I'm really delighted for you, AU. And
you're not really Mara Lee, are you?
No, I'm not. No, I can't that kind
Marley, thank you so much. That is awesome. Yeah, thank you. But
really great
yeah,
supporter.
we'll definitely make sure that gets to Gemma, though. I promise. Lady Dreamfire reminded me Tony Teflon has been really feeling bad and letting us know. So wishes to Tony. Virtual chicken soup your way, my friend. So thank you for all that you do for us, and I hope you get real soon.
Oh, get better soon, Tony.
Mara Lee, that was so awesome. I'm giggly all over for some reason. Thank you.
It's quite overwhelming, isn't it? When
it's more than overwhelming. It's like
it is. It's very humbling.
Yeah, that is awesome. I forgot totally where we were going. Yeah.
Look what you've done to AU, Mara Lee.
I'm gonna turn red for the rest. I'm gonna be as red as Nancy T's blanket. Yep. Yeah. So in regards to the Jaime, what the hell were we talking about? So sorry.
I think we.
Oh, Harry Strickland. Yes,
that's right. Yes,
they were teasing us. They're teasing us with the Harry Strickland.
They are teasing us because if that is Harry Strickland, and I know they've changed the looks of characters, but that's a pretty dramatic change of look, isn't it? From this tall, blonde-haired Adonis to the description of Harry Strickland as this fat, balding, grey guy. Yeah. Who's referred to as Harry the Homeless. That's a very different kind of vibe of look there. So I'm not sure what they're doing there. I've heard somebody utterly convinced it's Jaime, but I did have to point out that Jaime's hair is virtually brown now.
Yeah, they've definitely changed that.
But
one of the things I would like for you to do,
like Aegon, doesn't it?
It does. It's more like him, but yeah. It could be anybody, really.
I think they're just trolling us.
One of the things that I got to see, Game of Theories with Marie sent me a picture of a close-up of that person who we think is possibly Harry Strickland type character. His left sleeve has a cover over his knuckles.
Yes, it does. Yeah, I spotted that.
And then if you look at the bow, the character that has the bow in what we think is on the battlements of Winterfell, they have the same type of cover, the knuckle cover.
Oh, I didn't spot that. I did see it on when he's on the ship, but I did not spot it when. That's interesting.
That was from Marie, so thank you for sending that to me.
Yeah, thank you.
That is an interesting combination. I'm not sure whether that will be on a boat or whether that's really on the battlements of Winterfell.
Some super clever editing going on in that trailer. Some really sneaky cuts.
Photoshop darkening.
Make it appear. Oh yeah, I mean when you're just hit white balance on any shot in Winterfell, and you'll see what was really going on there. Obviously, then you can further manipulate it. But yeah, it's super dark. Somebody, who was it that said? The chat's going so fast. Somebody said it was John Connington, or there you go, Andy Burnett. Do you think it's John Conn's ginger? So again, but yeah, possibly. I mean, I think perhaps they kind of, when they do that thing, and they did it with Maester Marwyn, they kind of merged Ebros and Marwyn together and created this this chimera of a character. Perhaps that's what they're doing with Jon Conn Strickland.
Nine Nickel says with gouty feet.
But maybe they're just going to call him Harry Strickland, but he's going to be more Harry/Jon Conn. So that could work.
And we know he gets to the throne, so that's interesting.
Yes.
With that scene, another great picture that Marie shared with us when we did a live stream with her. Definitely got to say, Euron is there. That character from the Golden Company is there, and then there's the redheaded woman on the right. And looking at Melisandre's picture, I don't think that it's her.
No, I think you might be right. It could be again a stand-in for Mokoro. But they've decided to go with a female character to kind of fulfill the similar role that's going on in the books there.
That would make a lot of sense, actually.
The Euron, the Greyjoy connection with Makaro, obviously never got Victarion, so Makaro would work, or a version.
A male priest of Allure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the things that we are not quite sure of, well, in the past, we've seen like Thoros of Myr and Melisandre try to infiltrate wherever they can and influence the lords of Westeros. So this might be just one way that they do that. What'd you see?
To differing degrees. I mean, Thoros of Myr's attempts were half-assed at best, weren't they, to be fair?
But that's who he is.
He just got drunk with Robert Baratheon.
and Robert loved him for it. So yeah. Anytime you get to drink with the king, what more could you ask for?
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, I think that's kind of their religious representative.
So we've talked a lot about what you like and what you want to happen and things like that. What is it that if it does happen, you'll be really mad?
How long have we got?
That's up to you.
I don't want to see Arya get together with Gendry. I do not ship that.
Ooh.
I do not ship that at all. Because ew. Arya's a child. Arya is literally a small child. Because in my head, I'm doing book Arya.
Going to go, right into marriage.
An 11-year-old child, and I want to see her go and do the independent woman thing and go and explore and stuff. I also don't want Dany and Jon to just fall in love and have babies and rule Westeros together and everything be wonderful and roses and kittens and fluffy unicorns. This is not the story.
Fluffy unicorns? Is that like horny goats?
Yes, it is. Yes, it's exactly what it's like. Yeah. Which basically, I don't want this traditional fantasy happy ending. I love Lord of the Rings. I adore Lord of the Rings. But if Jon Snow ends up stood up in front of the Iron Throne with a grey beard and a crown on, saying "You bow to no one," no.
Liv Tyler is not going to be in Game of Thrones. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
So yeah, I want to see. Oh God, and I hate this bittersweet phrase because it's just been absolutely hammered by the fandom and argued over, and debated.
What's bitter? What's sweet? What's bittersweet?
But I want to see.
Is it caramel?
Like salted caramel, maybe. I want to see a degree of sadness, but with hope. Like the end of The Empire Strikes Back. It was like, oh my goodness. But there's that glimmer that actually this is going to play out. I kind of want that kind of vibe.
They're still alive, but in danger.
Yeah, well, not sort of in danger, but kind of like that they had to make sacrifices, basically. I mean, if anything Game of Thrones has taught us is that magic, blood magic, death, life, there's always a price. So, and I think that will very much be the case for the books because that's clearly what's been established. So, any victory that we see at the end of Game of Thrones Season 8 needs to come at a heavy price. If I'm not blubbing in hysterical, snotty tears, then I'm going to be really annoyed.
That's a great example. I love that. We need to get the live video feed on that one.
Yeah, when I jump onto the live stream, if we have a really, really bad death, I'm going to be like, you're just going to have to give me 10 minutes, okay? If I'd have had to have jumped on a live stream immediately after Hodor, I could not have got through that stream. It still, to this day, gets me right there.
A friend of mine did a Westworld after the dust settles, is what he called it. And
okay, awesome.
When we did those, it was just the hardest thing in the world because you really don't remember the pain that you went through because it just was so painful just to get through the end of the episode.
I was
Lady,
teaching at the time, and I literally took the next day off work.
Wow.
I mean, I joke that I'd had to have bereavement leave, but I genuinely, because I just could not sleep. Because obviously for me, it was like 3 a.m. when it finished, and I could not sleep, and I couldn't go to work.
That's great. That's amazing.
It's taking fandom to a new level. That
Yes,
isn't it? Bereavement leave for Hodor's death.
Sorry, my cousin Hodor died.
Yeah, pretty much.
One of the things that Lady Dreamfire asks is why did Roy Dotrice pronounce Gendry like Gendry? I just can't. Yeah. Is there being an English teacher and the literary background that you have? Is there something in the books that really bothers you when people say things like a mispronunciation, but even more so than that?
No, I'm actually quite against the snobbery of, oh, you've pronounced this incorrectly, because there's so many variables to take into account. Accent, regional dialect, and if
not everybody has the same alphabet even.
Absolutely, exactly. I think it's quite sort of like very hubristically westernized to assume that this is the only way, especially when it comes to names. Names are such an anomaly. You can literally spell a name Pete, and it could be pronounced Dave for all you want. That's literally how confusing names can be. So nobody is incorrect. Have you ever done that thing where you've read a book from cover to cover and you've pronounced one name consistently wrong? Mm-hmm. And then somebody else says, oh, what about this character? And you're like, who? And then you're like, oh, but that's in my head now. George R. Martin calls the Dothraki the Dothraki.
Oh,
Who's
yeah.
right? Who's wrong?
His pronunciation of Baratheon is just amazing. Frank Markopoulos, who's a book narrator in the chat, said people need to be nice to audiobook narrators,
especially because if you haven't previously read these texts and you've been asked to do this as a job, it can get a bit grating. He calls Brienne Brian a lot, which is a bit frustrating.
Brian,
Brian. But ultimately, do we know who he means? Mm-hmm. Does it matter? I'm cool with it. Robert and I both live in England, and we have different pronunciations for the same thing.
You can't say taco, so that's okay.
Neither can I, apparently. He calls Weil. I say Weiler. He says Willa. Who's wrong? Who's right? Who cares?
We know who you mean.
Exactly.
So
that's the main point, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. I mentioned before about the names of all the family members in the houses that you've researched. Mm-hmm. Was there something that you were able to find in doing that, as far as whether it would be this person is named because of that person, or maybe this person has a name that's similar, like Brynden Rivers and Brynden Tully, something like that. Some connection, like Lewin, for example, is from Dorne. That name comes from a Dornish family. So
yeah,
I don't know
spellings for the Maester and for the Kingsguard, but both pronounced Lewin. Yeah. Right.
So anything like that you found that was extremely, really curious, that you haven't done a video on, I should say.
Well, there's a lot of duplicate names. I really enjoy the story of Sam the Slayer, Sam the Savage. There's a lot of those going around, which is kind of has an interesting / hilarious implications for Samwell Tarly, who's supposed to be a coward, even though he's clearly not. We've got Davos. I always found interesting, because Davos Seaworth is he's very low class. He's from Flea Bottom. He's nothing, nobody of note, and yet his name is the same as former Sword of the Morning, husband to Nymeria of Dawn. So we've got one Davos, which is a huge big deal, and then just this guy from Flea Bottom. I find it interesting when there's zero repeat. Like Gendry is a complete standalone. There is no other characters called Gendry. Like, is this like a small folk thing as opposed to the nobles? But yeah, I'm very interested in, as you know, I've created this World of Ice and Fire family tree. So you do see a lot. I mean, the Targaryens are terrible for repeating names, like to the point of utter abject confusion. But that's realistic. You just take a glance at the monarchy of England and France and Spain, and you'll see there's 500 Charleses and Edwards and George, and it's just repeated: George, son of George, son of George, son of John, son of George. And that's kind of how it works. So yeah, there's one that always really stumped me was Baratheon and Theon. I'm not really sure if there's a connection to be made, but it just kind of sticks out a little bit, that one. What's all that about? Why?
It's funny you should mention that, because there's a Theon Stark. And if you're an Ironborn, you're a Greyjoy, I should say, even more so. Why in the world would you name your son, even though he's the third son? Why would you name your son after somebody that's, of the North?
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be disgusting.
It is hilarious that the Freys name a lot of their children after the Targaryens. Like they clearly they're high-reaching, aren't they? They want to be on a par to the dragon kings and queens, which they're clearly not, because they're Freys.
That's a Uranistic kind of thing, isn't it?
Yes,
he's reaching for the throne, so that's right, their way of doing it.
Yeah, overreaching in the case of House Frey.
Yeah, definitely. Theon is a Stark. I was just getting ready to. In regards to the Davos, for example, I always thought he was a dragon seed, and one of the things that gave me a hint of that is the way that Jaehaerys would. There I go with the pronunciation again. I hope that doesn't mess up anybody. The way that he squirmed when Alysanne was talking about the knight's privilege, or the king's privilege, or the lord's privilege, whatever you want to call it, where he gets to sleep with the wedding. He was squirming so much. He's like, yeah. I mean, I could just feel his anxiety over that whole thing. And that's one of the things that made me feel like, he was one of those guys.
Maybe there's something more to this. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, there's Targaryens running all over the place. That's for sure. 100%. It's really frustrating when I am working on my family tree, when I can't insert a suspected Targaryen because it's not canon. And I know that I'm omitting somebody who really should technically be on that tree, but I can't until George just writes those books and confirms one way or the other. And then I'm like, yay, I can now officially put the one exception I did make, and I did go back and forth on the decision to do this or not. And then I thought, what the hell, it's my tree, I can do what I want. So I put Jon Snow on there as the son of Lyanna and Rhaegar, and I did that about 3 years ago. Nice. Way before the show confirmed that. I thought, if anyone wants to have a problem with this and has beef, they can get stuffed. It's my tree. Make your own tree.
Of all the things that we've seen in the show, I think that's like the most 100% confirmed.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So far.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to ask one more question, if that's okay with you, and then we'll shut this wonderful broadcast down. In regards to Brynden Rivers, because he's one of my favorite characters, do you think that he has any kind of ill intent in this whole story from the Tales of Dunk and Egg? Or do you think, because personally I think, not to influence your answer, but I think he was drawn to the trees and trapped there because of his desire for the dark arts and for his desire to be in control when he's not in control. And he stayed too long.
I think, like Bran, he had a gift that was recognized, that drew him to that destiny. And I think also, like Bran, when the tree began to digest, is the only word I can think of, really. Become him, I think he became a very different person to the Brynden Rivers that we understand from the tales of Dunk and Egg. But it was because it was always there in the first instance, you know, that darkness, that intrigue, and possibly his mother is a Blackwood after all. And I said earlier on that I believe those skills come from the first men, not specifically the Starks, and the Blackwoods would certainly fit into that criteria.
Sure.
So it is possible that he had the not maybe as advanced as Bran could potentially go one day, but as it stands, because there's a lot of people think that Euron has similar abilities, and he was tested in the way Bran was tested, and Euron failed the test.
Absolutely.
And didn't get selected like Bran has been selected. So I think it's safe to assume that a very similar process occurred, and he was drawn in the way Bran was drawn by Bloodraven, by
with
maybe
the flying and all that.
The previous inhabitor of that cave. I don't think we can assume that Bloodraven was the first three-eyed raven or crow in the show.
Yeah, he couldn't be.
No. So I think that there was one before that drew Brynden Rivers to him, and then Brynden Rivers has done exactly the same with Bran. After a little searching around, you know, found the right guy. Yeah, you'll do. You passed the test. You can still fly. You didn't fall in the dream, and you're coming over here.
And we got your eye open, right?
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. As far as his intent towards anything, I think the trees have their own agenda. I think it's like a neutral energy. This is not good or evil. This is for themselves, this is about nature and the forces of nature and what works in their interests. As in, you know, if anybody encroaches on their nature, whoever that may be, then they are kind of their enemy, like the Ents.
Exactly.
Which is what you said at the very beginning of this stream. Exactly. So that was a nice circle around, isn't it? There you go.
Yeah, I've always liked Brynden Rivers. I thought he was always loyal to his family, and he always did what he had to do in order to protect them, regardless of what it cost him.
Yes.
And so Gemma, I want to say thank you. I really do appreciate you spending so much time with us in the fandom. I know I followed you forever, it seems like, and I've always enjoyed your videos. You've always done a great job in presenting them. And I'm really glad that you're able to meet with all the people here in the United States through the Con of Thrones. I think that's going to be an epic time.
Yeah, I can't wait. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure. And you're going to come on one of our after show live streams, aren't you? I think Kyle asked you.
I'm always available for anybody. So all you have to do is drop a line and I'll be there, as you know.
We'll hook that up. We'll make sure that we get that figured out when, you know, for one of the days to come on, and we can talk more season 8. She does this.
I'm turning off the monetization immediately. That's so generous. Oh my gosh, that is amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mom.
I'm overwhelmed. I'm really overwhelmed. I'm going to be red for the rest of the night.
Drinks are on AU. We're all coming round to your house for pizza now.
So very nice. Yeah, I really do appreciate you coming on. I know that everybody in the chat wants to say goodbye, but would you say goodbye to everybody for me?
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you all for joining us in the chat. It's been lovely. I've been keeping one eye on you guys. It's been going quite fast, so trying to keep up with you has been fun. Thank you, AU, for having me on. Great to... actually, we discussed the books a lot more than I thought we would today, and I really enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun. And yeah, come on season 8 onto either my channel or onto Kyle's when we do the after shows. Really looking forward to that. Thank you, Maura Lee, and to I can't remember who. There was another lady that donated as well.
9 nickels, I think it was.
That's right, 9 nickels. Thank you to 9 nickels as well. Really generous and really kind. So thank you. And I'd love to come back on your channel again sometime.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. Yeah, we definitely have to do that.
Definitely.
As soon as you have a free moment, you're back to a normal sleep pattern, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, it's only 2 a.m. I've got another 3 or 4 hours in me.
Oh my. Well, I don't know. Lady Dreamfire also said you look absolutely wonderful. I think she used the word
Thank you.
Jessica Rabbit. That's what it was.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, super hot. Basically. Yeah, I think that's what she was trying to get at.
Minus the red sparkly dress and the assets.
Oh, those assets. Okay,
Yes,
sorry.
those ones. Yeah. There you go. You got it. Took a second.
No, I'm really red. Okay, so thank you everybody for coming by. I really do appreciate it. Hit that like button on the way out, and you guys have a great night. Thanks again for coming. We'll see you tomorrow with Lady Gwen from Radio Westeros.